We have three core values: humble, hungry, people smart. Oddly enough, slash interesting enough, of course, it came from a book, and it came from the book Unlocking Potential. You and I both read that book thinking about just like building a team, thinking about teams I've been on, just actual sports teams and things like that. What I love about these core values, and I think really the biggest one, is the humility part. In any partnership, on any team, in any culture, humility is probably the single most important character trait that we can have.
Which is why you didn't for so long even entertain business partnerships, because humility
Yeah,
is such a scarce quality for people to have coming into a partnership that you can't really operate properly without it.
100%. And like, think about it. Like, the moment that somebody becomes selfish, like this moment that somebody turns selfish and starts thinking like, I should be getting this because I do X, Y, and Z, or the moment that you're not thinking about everybody else and you're only thinking about how this benefits you. And it sounds weird saying that because I think a lot of people are like, hey, I'm going to get mine, I'm going to get my stats, I'm going to make the most money, and that's great. Like, there's part of me is like, there may be a place for that, but I think if you want your team to succeed over the long run, humility is going to be the biggest part of that.
Well, we also have to clarify that the humility doesn't mean that we're not competitive. Humility is meaning that we are humble enough to admit when we're wrong, or humble enough to admit that maybe we don't have all of the answers, or that we can be better. That's the humble aspect. And like, this is something that we do really, really well, that I think is really important to leadership, to hoping that other people adopt that characteristic from us. It's we disagree very agreeably. And I think that's because we're always trying to flex that humility muscle of our core values, which is probably the easiest thing that you and I struggle with out of our three core values, but we're pursuing it. That's what's different. Like, we know that we have to be humble, hungry, people smart. Loan officers, people in sales are hungry. They're going to go get it and they're going to be super competitive. They're people smart in that they know how to handle uncomfortable conversations. But the humility aspect is constantly something that we have to pursue and remind ourselves. It's like, why were people wearing the WWJD bracelets? It's because they needed to be reminded of, what that meant to them. So for us, we constantly need to be reminded, what is humility? What does that mean? And again, I think that reflects in our ability to agree to disagree agreeably for the best.
The book in Unlocking Potential, they also talk about same pageness, like wanting people on our team who are, or they would say, we want people on the team who have the same pageness mindset. Now, same pageness not being a real word, but the idea being that like, we don't necessarily want people in our community and on our team that think exactly like us. We want people that align with us and are wanting to achieve the same goals as us. And then the different thought processes that we welcome in to our culture and our community, it only helps us grow and think differently and get better. And I think that part is something else that we really do well. And I think that our culture really captivates, is that we have a lot of people from different backgrounds, different beliefs. Spiritually, we have people who come from different backgrounds economically, different areas. And the reality is that like, we may not all necessarily agree on everything, but we are aligned in wanting the same things. And that's where the being on the same page part comes into play.
I think our team, especially like when we talk about our team, the Ascend Lending leadership team, something that you and I have done a much better job at is communicating very clearly and very boldly. And we've also empowered our executive director, our production manager to do the same thing in such a respectful manner. It's challenged our ability to communicate. And a part of one of our principles within the core values is facts, then feelings. And I think that has nurtured such a great ability for us to disagree agreeably, as well as get that same pageness, because we're communicating where we're at currently, what we're missing, or what maybe is being miscommunicated or even misunderstood at times. and that environment to disagree as well as to talk it through. Or, our production manager, we had a moment where she just said, hey, we're gonna have to put a pin in this. Let me gather my thoughts and come back on the topic. And I think that just highlighted that we're in an environment that we wanna be on the same page, and we also wanna do it in an effective manner that doesn't get people riled up, and we want to get to the solution. We just don't talk about them, and we don't just mention them on these videos. Like, we try to live this in our day-to-day, in our work, even in our personal lives. And that's something that's made a huge positive impact for the better. Again, all of Ascend is, in my opinion, much better for us having those measurable core values.
I think this also ties into something we talk about. It's around the topic of like culture and community, and like talking about, how we operate at Ascend and how we talk about Ascend. But we talk a lot about, you hear this a lot in companies. They say we're like a family. And the reality is, and you and I started talking about this a long time ago, is the fact of the matter is that we're not a family. We are a sports team. The best players are going to play. There are cuts. When you are not playing at the highest level, you cannot play on the team. Whereas our family, there's always a seat at the table. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have slumps where you are not playing at the highest level. There are going to be times where things are really difficult and everybody's making everybody's jobs harder within the family, but you're not firing them. You're not letting them go. So you're standing with them to the very, very end. And we talk a lot about that. We care deeply about our people here at Ascend. We care deeply about our team here. We pour into our team members here. But at the end of the day, we recognize that we are not family and that they have families. And we don't want them to put Ascend Lending ahead of their families. And we've seen this so many times. Anybody can think of people in their minds, maybe even being themselves. I'm guilty of this at times, where we are putting our work before the things that matter the most. And we try to tell ourselves that we're doing this to provide, or we're doing this because of this. And the reality is that like, we're not doing it for them. And trying to maintain that perspective, not just for us as leaders, but also everybody that's at Ascend. And that's really where part of the comp structure was born out of, the idea of, hey, being able to make more doing less, because that's great. If you want to do $100 million in loan production, fantastic. But like, if you want to do $10 million in loan production and spend a whole lot more time doing some of these things with your kids and so forth, great. You have the ability to do, the platform allows you to do that.
I want to additionally highlight the fact that as a company, when we talk about this, making cuts, benching people, it's not because we don't love them, because again, they may not be blood family that we can fire, but we are hiring people here at Ascend to be shoulder to shoulder with us who are great people. We talk about this on our Tuesday all access calls. I've mentioned it for the last 4 weeks. We are bringing in people who are great and we are holding them accountable to greatness. And there's a difference between being great and being held accountable to that versus having potential and being given a chance. And that's something that Ascend isn't built for, giving people chances. Ascend is built for great loan officers who are just great in communication. They know their guidelines. They're awesome at originating. They bring their own book of business, like they self-source, and we're holding them accountable to being great. And it's not from a micromanaging perspective. It's from the aspect of, hey, if you're going to ask us questions, we're going to give you feedback for greatness. And that's what we want to see you do, because we've seen you do that in the past elsewhere. And this is just the best platform for you to be your best self.
I think one of the just had me thinking about this when you were talking about that, was there's a guy who I really respect, Joe McNamara. He does like leadership training. And he said this to me one time at one of the previous companies that I was working at, because I was just really struggling as a leader. And he was, Army Ranger, like highly respected guy in the military, great leader. He was like, there's a lot of guys that I would go drink a beer with on Friday night, but I would never go to war with. That was really eye-opening, because it was, you may really like certain people, but they're not their best people to help you accomplish the mission that you are trying to accomplish. And no, this is not the military and this is not war, but if these guys at the highest level of decision making and intensity where the consequences are the greatest are operating this way, why would we not do the same? I think that has really helped shape who joins Ascend Lending, who joins our leadership team, and kind of the growth we have here at Ascend. And that's the type of people we're looking for.
Let's talk about one of our loan officers here in the upstate. This is the hashtag broker advantage. This is something that in the broker community, it's, hashtagged, it's popular because it's so accurate. So one of our loan officers here in the upstate had a loan that he knew was going to be a little bit complex, but he also knew that he had all the ingredients for a perfect loan. He just had to make sure he put it with the right lender. And the broker advantage is that he put it with one lender, even though he did all due diligence before putting it with a specific lender, confirmed that they would accept it, confirmed this, confirmed that, did a lot of legwork up front. They still ended up denying it, which blew our minds because he asked all of these specific questions. And unfortunately, like all people, everybody makes mistakes, but this was a big deal. So thankfully, because he has the broker advantage, he was able to take that exact same file with that client. Instead of referring it to another loan officer at a different company, not getting any commission, putting that client through the rigmarole again of putting in applications and blah, 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 disclosures, this, that, and the other, he was able to simply take this client to a different lender. He remained in control, he remained the point of contact, and he was able to proactively work through the issues that the other company had. Simultaneously, behind the scenes, he was on the phone with HUD. Our production manager got involved. She was on the phone with HUD, and they got in writing that the first company was wrong, and the lender that he put the loan in the second time, funded it. It was no big deal. He, just closed it, funded it, was just the savior of this loan because these buyers who had constantly been told that it just couldn't happen because of status, because of funds, and this, that, and the other. And this loan officer, because of his experience and because of his great relationships with the account executives and knowing the lenders that he was partnering with, he knew that he could get this done, and he did. So even though it was a roller coaster, he stayed in great communication with the client, buyer's agent, the listing agent, start to finish, and got it closed, got it funded. Sometimes he calls me and I am the pessimist of here are all the things that are not going to work out and I need you to be prepared. But he believes he can, and he does. And I need to stop being so shocked because that is who he is. He will outwork anyone, and he's such a good originator that he can see if it's going to work out or not. So I love it.
That really was a prime example of the broker
Advantage, man.
The broker advantage. Another great example, another great story is we have a loan officer in the Low Country. This loan officer, she had a client, or I should say clients. I think there was like 8 to 10 individual people that wanted to be on this loan. They wanted to buy a 50-acre property. It had a single family house on it, and the rest of it was just raw land. Very difficult property to finance. It wasn't like the house was in great condition. It was also in a rural area. It has all the things that are, the property itself had all the challenges lined up, and not to mention that not all the borrowers were citizens. All the borrowers were self-employed. So, I mean, you have a recipe for what could be just a complete and total disaster. 19 out of 20, 99 out of 100 loan officers would have shut this down. And they'd said, no way, we can't do this. Shout out to this loan officer because she said, I'm gonna figure out how to get it done. Going back to the broker advantage, she went to numerous different lenders. I bet she went to 8, 9, maybe even 10 different lenders. She had an entire spreadsheet laid out for these specific clients. She took this to these lenders, she presented it to them, found a solution to get this deal closed. And one of the coolest things about this is this deal is over $1 million. On this deal, because of the Ascend Lending comp plan, she's gonna make nearly $20,000 on one transaction. That doesn't happen in the mortgage world where you do a $1 million loan. Most of the time, you're probably cutting your commission to be competitive in the jumbo category. 99% of people couldn't finance the deal in the first place. And not only did she find a way to finance it, but she's gonna get compensated as she should for troubleshooting and problem solving this incredibly challenging deal that I have no doubt if you help 8 people, they're going to be referring you clients for future deals. So again, huge advantage as a broker, huge advantage with the Ascend Lending platform and comp plan, as well as just a massive shout out to the loan officer and really tapping into this culture of humble, hungry, people smart, the hunger aspect especially of I'm going to figure out a way to solve this problem for my clients.
And it's important to understand when we say the broker advantage, as a broker, it's so easy for us to get another lender added, and our loan officers' voices are heard so loudly. Again, we meet every single Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We all turn on our camera with our goofy filters on, and we all kind of town hall our problems, our questions, our concerns. And it's something that is constantly brought to the forefront when people want to have solutions. So she was looking for a specific lender. I think we already had that lender, or we got them added within 24 hours of her request.
I don't even think they were on our list.
Yes. So again, getting them added, she sought them out. And again, networking is such a big deal in the broker community because it's very much a culture of collaboration, broker to broker. I say it is industry-wide. It's not industry-wide. Here at Ascend, we're really, really big on collaborating. And we understand that if people don't want to work with us, they don't want to work with us, and we're going to move on to the next one because there's enough business out there, even in the slow market. There's just so much business. So she found the lender that could get it done. We got them added to our vendor list of lenders. And I think, is she already funded?
Yeah, she should be clear to close like this week. I think she is clear to close, but she's funding this week.
She is clear to close. Yep. So she's already clear to close, getting funded. And it's that easy versus a retail loan officer who may have some broker options, but they don't have the control to get a specific company added if they run into a scenario that they can't get done. 99% of the companies in the retail world might have 4 or 5 people that they can broker to, like estate housing, maybe something on the lower end, maybe one jumbo, and that's it. That's all you've got. Versus here in the broker world, we can shop it to as many lenders as we want, and we can get those additional lenders added fairly quickly so that you can save the deal and just close more deals. Now, again, our loan officers, the ones that are coming to us, everyone pretty much has a niche of I want to do this, or this is my clientele. Hey, I'm a slam dunk vanilla loan officer. I just want the ability to control my pricing and be competitive. If I only want to make $500 on a deal to save this deal and win the long-term relationship, I want the control to do that because that's what's best for my client in their scenario versus jumping through these hoops, making sure everybody has to get a piece of the pie when that's not going to benefit me or this client in the long run. And I think those things make the broker world different, but what makes Ascend on top of that a little bit better is just our approach to how to problem solve with those core values of humble, hungry, people smart, and making sure that everybody's held accountable to those.
We have a loan officer. She was an originating loan officer assistant. She would have a couple deals maybe that would come in here and there, but she was primarily helping another loan officer and basically growing his business. Mm-hmm. She connected with Caitlin and decided that she was going to come to Ascend and she was going to start originating on her own. She's going into her second month. She's going to close 3 loans. Now keep in mind, as an originating loan officer assistant, you're probably making somewhere in the ballpark of it could be anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 depending upon the level of your level of experience and so forth. In 30 days, she's going to close 3 loans, and she's going to make nearly $23,000.
Which is crazy because, again, going from making an annual of, let's just say 50 to split the 40 to 60 difference. Let's say 50,000 to in 1 month because of our comp structure. Additionally, because of our incentive up front of coming to Ascend charges no basis points. So if you're locking at that 275 margin within your first 30 days at Ascend Lending, you are making the full 275. You are making everything. There's no cost. That's how we at Ascend incentivize those to come over to the broker world, to see that, hey, we're not going to have sign-on bonuses because we have great margins. We don't have a ton of overhead because we have great margins. We're like offering you so many things because it doesn't have to be an expensive operation to have great support, to have a team that wants to collaborate with you, to have problem solvers, to have systems and tech, etc. And that's something that is constantly blurred when we're talking to other brokers, even when we're talking to other brokers, because many people, their models are built on making money off of the loan officers versus providing a really great platform, to which you've explained Ascend Lending in the NASCAR Formula One previously. Give me that scenario one more time.
Formula One, NASCAR. In NASCAR, everybody's car has to be equal. Okay, the vehicle that these guys are driving in, okay, they could be the greatest driver of all time, but at the end of the day, they're driving in the same vehicle that these other guys are. Formula One is different. Formula One, you could be a phenomenal driver, but not all vehicles are created equal. Taking that mindset, I think, will help people understand what we're trying to do at Ascend Lending, is that we are trying to create the best vehicle. So even if you're not the best driver, and we want the best drivers, but even if you're not the best driver, our vehicle, we believe, is going to help you take your business to the next level. And so when you get into our vehicle, you're going to make more money, you're going to close loans faster, you're going to be able to provide better customer service, you're going to have an overall greater experience to serve your referral partners and clients. So when we talk about the differences, we are not in NASCAR, we are in Formula One, and I can assure you that not all mortgage brokerages are created equal. So come get in our car and drive it.
Well, it also, what's funny is that you can even, instead of saying like professional sports team, like we're the best pit crew, because again, like when we're talking about creating this vehicle, when we're talking about putting together the best team, you want fast, you want efficient, you want a system that is programmed to your strengths and to make you even better. And those are all things that we're constantly striving for. This is not a company that has been around and is just set in its ways. We are definitely not one of those, like, that's just the way it is. Gosh, even with adding another state this morning, you and I made 13 phone calls because we were fact checking the fact experts and then calling other people. And that's just something we're really intentional about pursuing, is not just what we're told. We want to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have the best approach to problem solving and that we're connecting with experts that can help us make Ascend Lending even better. And that's a constant pursuit of ours.